to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Whoa, forgot to take the picture down. How are you, folks? Have you paddled your way through your Wednesday okay? I would like to think, there you go, we can see each other now. I would like to think you've had a good day. I hope it hasn't been a bad one. It's been bloody warm. Speaking of bloody warm, I forgot to download an email that I sent to myself. Give me a moment, because you'll actually like to see, this attachment. I think it makes a mockery of something that we spoke about last night. And there are a few things that we spoke about last night. So take that as what you will. Let me just upload the thing and get it sucked in here for a moment so that I can use it as an example at the appropriate times. All right. So what a wonderful day it has been. Bloody hot. In fact, unbelievably hot in some areas, and we'll get into that very shortly. There's been a lot of movement from Anthony Albanese on the potential agreement of a national or a federal royal commission. It wouldn't be federal alone. It would be a federal and state, a combined, if you like, royal commission, run in conjunction with the one that Chris Minns is putting forward out of New South Wales. Now, this isn't an unheard of thing. There have been combined federal-state royal commissions in the past. Things like, I want to say, Aboriginal deaths in custody, even abuse in custody, and I want to say the one where they went after the churches. They were all joint royal commissions, and I would ask you, have we seen desirable outcomes from any of those royal commissions? Have we seen the recommendations brought down being actioned? Have we seen anybody in any royal commission held in the last, I don't know, let's be honest, 25 years? Has anybody paid any price at all, other than the people paying the cost of the Royal Commission? I could be wrong, but I can't think of any. There's every likelihood I'm wrong. So the people are going to be paying the cost of the Royal Commission regardless, whether it's New South Wales or federally ascribed as well. And what will it show? Well, it will only show what the terms of reference allow it to show. And I think that right now, the lawyers, could I take a stab in the dark and say predominantly Jewish lawyers, will be working exceptionally hard to organise the government's frames and terms of reference, federal and state, for this royal inquiry into what happened. Do we think it will actually get to the truth? I wouldn't go holding my breath if I were you. There does seem to be a great deal of anomalies. Will anybody be holding particularly other nations to account if it's found that there was some involvement there? Will it ever be found that there was some involvement? Will the terms of reference even allow the thought of that possibility to be explored? I doubt it. But I could be wrong, been wrong before, happy to admit it when I am. So fingers crossed I am wrong on this one. Fingers crossed we will get an open, very probing, very powerful, with its powers to compel people to appear before it and to give evidence. Let's see what happens. But I got very hooked up in a couple of royal commissions. I was very invested in seeing Gillard and her crony union boyfriend mate be held to account along with Bill Shorten and many others, for the union bastardry that they've been a part of for many, many years. You might remember there was an inquiry into that a while back, and we had great hopes. It went on for months. It went on in different parts of the country. There were hearings in Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, Brisbane. Dyson Hayden was the name of the bloke who headed that Royal Commission. I actually had him in a limo I was driving at the time. And interesting soul. It was a bit like having death sitting in the back seat. But what came out of all of that? Well, nothing. No arrests, no prosecutions. There was a lot of obfuscating. There was a lot of can't explore that because it's not in the terms of reference. So how about the people get to set the terms of reference rather than governments and their Jewish lawyers? That may not be Jewish, but I suspect quite a lot of them are. The government pays for the best lawyers. They pay the highest money in Australia that you will pay for lawyers. And they can do that because it's, in effect, we the people that are paying for it, because the government hides behind the protection of government. And so we the people get to stump up the bill for all of their misdeeds, including Brittany Higgins. There's another one, which we haven't really got into, but look, that's for another night. That's for another night. I should say hello to a few people tonight because Vince is not pushing the buttons for me. I'm not even sure if he's awake. Tony, the great man, is in the room first up tonight, followed by Toxic. Good to have you in the house. And the lovely Sandy from the Donkey Sanctuary. I was speaking to the gorgeous Sandy today. 107, I beg your pardon, 108, soon to be 109 donkeys at the Sanctuary at the moment. Now, the Sanctuary isn't closing or anything like that. If I've led you to believe that that is the case, nothing could be further from the case. Do not believe that. And please don't think if you are in far north Queensland or Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, or even more than an hour away from where they're located, that you could put your hand up and hopefully gain a donkey pairing if it comes time to share these out. It won't be the case. These donkeys will be going to properties within a sort of reasonable drive from where Sandy and Baz are, so they can be looked after and cared for and looked over on a very regular basis. So if it comes to that, it may not come to that. We are working on a few different things to try and help raise further funds for the Good Samaritan Donkey Sanctuary. Well, Sandy and I were discussing it today. It's very difficult, given that I guess we are both in the position of working on other people's donations. And we know how hard it is, at the moment, how hard it has been, and how much harder it is likely to get in 2026. So, we're both expecting to feel the hit, if you like, significantly in what we can and can't do, given that we rely entirely on support from you. And if we can't get it, then we can't really keep doing what we're doing. So that's essentially the play of the game. But we are doing everything we can, and we'll be excited to hopefully introduce something new, particularly for you silver stackers, where you might be able to help. And what that came up with this idea. So we are really working towards that at the moment. Ainsley Bullion are going to be playing a role in that, I hope. And it's just a bit difficult to get a conversation with them at the moment because they are flat out, as you would expect. Now, today, another red-hot day at Ainsley Bullion in Brisbane, Gold Coast and Melbourne, where the doors are propped open. How weird's that for a bullion dealer? The doors are propped open. I went there Monday morning very early, expecting to, be at the end of a queue, and I arrived about 8:30, and the door to Ainsley Bullion was propped open. I've never seen it propped open before. There's usually a lock. You've got to get buzzed in kind of thing, but no. And I found out later while I was talking to Michael Engerman, CEO of Ainsley, we really had a very brief chat because they are so busy, and it was really first day back for them too. So I couldn't have picked a worse time. But he said then that there were people there at 7:30 in the morning waiting to get in the door. They normally don't open till 9. So they did open the doors early, and they were helping people from that time. Like I say, when I got there, there were probably, well, I was number 9 in the queue, but there looked to be a lot more people there than that, and I was in a pickup queue rather than a selling queue. So there were a few people in there. So if you don't like waiting a while, and waiting a while is what you do when you go to a bullion dealer regardless, then you can always buy online at ainslieybullion.com.au, and do not be concerned if you see a exclamation point coming up against something that you want to buy and think, oh, well, I can't buy that because they'll never get it. Their stock is pretty much assured. There are no problems getting stock at the moment, particularly from the Perth Mint and other places. There are no significant issues with silver stocks at the moment, and Ainslie source their own silver for their own silver production, including, the bars and, of course, the Ainslie rounds, which those of you who took up the deal and got 10 of our Ainslie rounds in a Voice of Freedom holder, I think you've got to be reasonably happy with the return on investment you've got from them, because at the moment they're going through the roof. I mean, it's still an ounce of silver, which is trading at the moment, and that is the difference with what's going on in the market. Don't look at so much the spot price. So I'll bring up the Ainslie site. So I'm going to bring that up over on another screen so I can actually see it. So at the moment, the silver spot is $118.55. Unless I refresh that, it's probably going to change. Oh, that's not good. We've internalized a server error. I told you to go and check out ainslieybullion.com.au, but I might have crashed them. Ew. All right, I'll remove that for the minute, and I'll try and bring it up on another page and see what happens. Okay. All right, looks like the Ainslie Bullion site is either down for a little bit of maintenance at the moment, but keep an eye on it. It will pop back up in the not-too-distant future. If it's got a little red exclamation point beside it, just means that the stock hasn't been delivered yet, but it will be coming. They have an exceptionally large pile of online orders to get through, and they are serviced predominantly, I think, if not entirely, through the Brisbane office. So they're going through and putting out what are ostensibly thousands of orders that were made during the Christmas Eve to January 5 time that the office was closed. And now all that silver is hitting the streets and being sent out to its rightful owners. Hopefully you'll get yours real soon. And how much of a smile will it put on your face to see that the price you bought it for is substantially less than the price it is currently at. Now, I'll try and show you something a little different here. What you're looking at there is the chart that, I'll get rid of the ad, the chart that Vince brought up on us last night. So don't be getting too worried about the 118.44 in red here. Now, that's just an indication that it is dropping slightly from what it has been here during the day. But if we zoom out, you can see here that the highs have been extremely high, going up to nearly $1.20 today, earlier today, settling down around at the moment at about 118 Australian. Or if we look over to the US side of things, I can change that to US dollars, and you'll see that it's sitting just under 80 US dollars. In fact, the COMEX silver settled today 5.73% higher at $80.53 an ounce. That's US dollars, of course. So what does all that mean? Well, that means that if you bought way back when we first started telling you to buy, you've made a profit probably nearly triple your investment. What should you be doing with that? Celebrating, going out for dinner? By all means, go and do some of that. But I wouldn't be going and spending a whole heap of it just yet. I'd be starting to consider what's going to happen with gold. And that's certainly what I'm considering doing. I don't have a great deal of silver, but I might, given that the rise in its value in the last few weeks, just the last few weeks alone, would see me able to trade a couple of bars of um, silver and get a gold coin. And my expectation with gold is that it will get a bump in the not too distant future, too. Uh, the people that I've been speaking to have poked all sorts of numbers around, including $10,000 an ounce in the very near future. Now, we've seen, 5.3% rises in the silver market within hours. The silver market, has been the most explosive, the most wildly traded in trading history. There are things happening that have never been seen before, like the truth is finally being shown and exposed. The truth of the lie of paper, silver paper, silver and gold paper. That is all it is, because at the end of the day, those people who've been trading it as paper seem to forget that it has a lot of uses outside of, looking shiny around someone's neck or uh, sitting in someone's stack. The predominant use for it is industrial use, and the demand for solar and the silver paste that is required to take the little whatever's created by the sun hitting the window to the wire that eventually sends the electricity to your place somehow, that requires a silver paste. Well, the companies that make those are the ones who've been buying out all the silver all over the world. China has practically emptied the Shanghai gold reserve of all silver. Now, when I say practically emptied, there's still something like 50 million tons in there. But compared to what is normally in there, that would be catastrophic levels of silver in their exchange. Normally, they would have well over 1,000 tons, maybe multiple thousands of tons of silver sitting in their silver reserves. But the big silver buyers, and they would be the big battery makers for the electric cars, they would be the big solar manufacturers in China. And bear in mind, these are not private companies. These are state-owned entities who've come in and said, right, well, we're going to protect our business. We're going to be able to fill our orders regardless of the price of silver. They don't care what the price is because they've got orders that have to be filled. If they can't get the silver, they can't fill any of the orders. Therefore, they make no money whatsoever. So they've gone and bought up as much of the silver as they can possibly get their hands on and are stockpiling it. They're also looking outside China to the rest of the world, particularly to the West, to those institutions that have to sell their silver, because if they don't, they're not going to be able to make their margin calls. And if they can't do that, they're going to be liquidated by a computer program, which doesn't care if you have feelings and doesn't care if there are extenuating circumstances. It just simply looks at the figures and says, no, you're liquidated, gone. And you lose everything. I mean, everything. So it's a pretty interesting time at the moment. So yes, at the moment, gold isn't moving very much at all. I think it's at around 6,640, 30, 50, thereabouts for the last few weeks. It isn't going up and down drastically, but it will. The silver market cannot move as wildly as it has been, and we haven't reached the peak of that silver market yet. Pardon me. One of the largest banking institutions in America released a report very quietly yesterday. That report into metals trading for 2026 and their predictions for metals trading in 2026 indicated that a silver price of $309 an ounce was likely. Not might happen, not could happen, but is likely to happen based on mathematical formulas and historical evidence. $309 US. You do the conversion yourself. It's got to be over 400 Australian, obviously. Will there be a US dollar by the time it gets to that? That'll be the other interesting part. So do not go selling your silver yet, even though you think, $1.18 is a pretty good price, given you bought it for $28, $36, $40. What do you need it for? Do you really need it at the moment? If you don't really need the money at the moment, wait. In my humble opinion, there is more of this to come. And we've had a bit of a pullback tonight, like the trading, or this afternoon, really. When the New York market closed, and that's going on probably 3 or 4 hours ago now, when the New York market closed, a lot of the fierce trading died down. So a lot of the volatility in the silver market, the going up, going down, or the propping up of the price a little bit higher, took over. Asia, on the other hand, is just going to sleep as well. And their markets closed a bit over an hour ago now too. So this is all sort of cleanup trading now. The bots will take over control again about 10 o'clock tonight. And it will be interesting to see when we wake up tomorrow morning where the price has gone again, because the sell-off is not complete. There is much more pain to come out of the American market, and the West, controlled by the COMEX market, cannot allow the gap between the paper price of silver, which at the moment is $80.73 US. It cannot allow that gap to the real price of silver, which, if you go into a bullion dealer in Hong Kong or in Shanghai or Beijing or Dubai or Abu Dhabi, or indeed anywhere in Saudi Arabia, you won't be able to buy 1 ounce of silver for $80.73. You'll pay $130 to $140 US every time. And that, my friends, is the real price of hard silver. The COMEX market figures that we see are lies. Not necessarily lies, but they are lies. But they are part of the fakery that we've been taught to believe in. But now we're seeing the difference between the fake figures, the paper figures, and what happens when you hold the real product. So that would be my 100% advice to you. If you are going to go and buy some silver, if it's the first time you've ever bought into the metals market, do not think you have missed the boat. As I've said to you before, there are people who are predicting and betting reputations on it. There is one woman who's bet her reputation, and she's a very well-respected economist, this lady. She's bet her reputation that the silver will go to $1,300 an ounce in 2026. So that's US. So do not think you've missed out now, because if you go to Ainsley Bullion, you're going to pay $140 for an ounce or a coin. All right? You haven't missed out. Get in sooner rather than later. And if, like me, you struggle to put together enough money to buy an ounce, don't forget, Ainsley run this Ainsley Saver account, which is absolutely bloody spectacular for people like you, maybe me, or me, definitely maybe you, who can only put in a little bit at a time. All right, maybe you can only put $20 a week in, or $50 a week, or $100 a week. And look at the way silver's going at the moment. At the end of 4 weeks, you'll have $400, be able to buy half an ounce, but you'll be in. Now, if you put away $5 a week, $10 a week, whatever it happens to be, into your Ainsley Saver, you can choose to invest in gold or silver that way. And what happens is it allows you to buy gold and silver fractionally. Now, if you want to know what a fraction of the cost of gold and silver is, all you need to do when the Ainsley site is back up and running again, although the ticker is running, is have a look at what a 1/10th or a 1/20th of an ounce of gold costs. Now, I think I saw earlier today 1/20th of an ounce of gold, which is wafer thin, folks. Like, it is just way tiny. I reckon on a hot day like today, it would melt if it was in your top pocket. I think that was worth about $160 or $80. So by able to buy fractionally, that $160 or $180 gets you into gold, but you might take 5 or 6 weeks or 10 weeks or however long it takes you to get to it. But once you've got in there, you're in there, and keep buying. It's only going to get better. Sure, if you happen to go and, win some money on a scratchy or the pokies or whatever your indulgence happens to be, I would advise not to take it to the bar and celebrate. I would advise to take it to a bullion dealer and invest there. You will find the payoff to be quite significant. You can also, if you're a Bitcoin person, you can also, through Ainsley Bullion, trade Bitcoin. And you can trade metal for Bitcoin or Bitcoin for metal, whatever you want to do. So ainsleyBullion.com.au, all the details are there. And if you are going to go and make an order, make sure you put my name or the Voice of Freedom in the notes section of your order. And that way you'll get a little discount. And that little discount, well, it might seem terribly little, depending on how much you're buying, but it all adds up in the end. And as I've said to many people who've said, oh, gee, it's not a bloody great discount, is it? Well, no, it's not 10%, because they don't make 10%. They don't know anything near that when they sell it to you. They couldn't, because if they were selling 10% above the spot price, every other bullion dealer would be making a fortune, because they'd be a lot cheaper. So don't think from a moment that, it works that way. It's precisely the opposite, in fact. All right, let's get back into what else I have to show for you tonight. Oh, yes, the bomb brilliance. All right. Last night, you will remember, we talked about the Bureau of Meteorology and how their $96.5 million website was a bit of a blowout. And as it turned out, an expensive blowout that was a abject failure. Now, this was agreed to by the people from the BOM under Estimates Committee questioning. They said that they were working very hard to rectify it. That would be more money we're paying if this $96.5 million that was paid for the BOM site overhaul was completely wasted, because they got nothing but complaints right from the word go. People were terribly, terribly, terribly disheartened with the information that had been removed, particularly from the weather radars and wave height readings and all that kind of thing. But most of all, the way that the radar was changed took it from what was a reasonably detailed, and if you knew what you were studying, a very detailed guide as to what sort of rain, thunder, and other things are happening in your area, to something that Ken Doan could have painted back in the 80s and probably been paid $1 million for, or $96.5 million for, to be precise. Anyway, today, a very, very warm day. Had reports coming in from everywhere. I'll get to the highest report very shortly, but this one was only sent in to me very recently from Wilson's Promontory today. Now, for those of you that don't know where Wilson's Promontory, southwestern coast of Victoria. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Southeastern coast of Victoria. It's the other bay, if you like. Wilson's Prom, 44.2, feels like 59.1. Are you right with that? What was the actual temperature on Wilson's Promontory today? Mid-30s. So the bomb's website telling you that it feels like 59.1. Bear in mind, these are probably the recorded figures. So in 20 years' time, when our grandchildren are saying, oh, that climate change, our grandparents didn't listen to us then. Geez, they didn't listen. Now look at us. Look, they even had history dating back that said it was like 59.1 degrees on that day. They knew it was coming. Well, sadly, that's how the lie gets spread. You're seeing it right in front of your face there. And then you get people like Pete from Pinaroo, who sends me a picture of his weather station. That's the second picture he sent. The first one was 42. Second one was 46.2. Feels like 33 in the shade, though. Doesn't that sound nice? 46 degrees. I don't think I've ever been in that sort of heat, ever. Maybe when I was a kid in the Mallee, but I don't remember it being terribly bad. And blisteringly hot when you get out under it. There has been a lot of discussion recently about, I was going to say climate change, but it's not. It's about climate engineering. And is it really about the climate, or is it more about the dimming, separating us directly from the sun's rays? Is that what this is about? Because we've been hearing many people have developed huge followings on the back of a theory that the sun is putting out healing frequencies, growing frequencies, frequencies that are meant to trigger things inside humanity that allow us to become more aware, more awake, more powerful in and of our own abilities. I would argue that there is certainly some evidence of that, I think. Many people are choosing to look in areas now where before they never would. And now when they look in those areas, they don't come back with eyes like saucers. They come back with a sad expression and a knowing look of, shit, they are doing that to us. More of that. We need more of that. A lot more. Australia is working under a dictator, Anthony Albanese. He's an idiot, but he is still a dictator. So why is Donald Trump leaving him here? Donald Trump is threatening so many dictators around the world, but he's left Albo off the friggin' list. Bit disappointed about that. Interesting that the latest dictator that America has taken under its wing, the fella from Venezuela, who fronted court apparently because he headed up a drug cartel in Venezuela that was sending drugs to America and killing Americans. This was an argument made by the prosecution to allow them, when I say them, the Americans, to target a terrorist. He was the head of a prescribed terrorist organization, a drug cartel, shipping drugs to America, killing Americans. Well, today, those same prosecutors dropped that whole story. By that, I mean there was no drug cartel. He certainly wasn't the head of any drug cartel. They used it so that they could avoid going to Congress to get permission to go in and get him. They used those anti-terrorism laws to go in and get him like that. Now, is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I don't really have a problem with it. The people in Venezuela appear to be extremely happy that, I've forgotten the bloke's name, the president is gone. Maduro is gone. They seem to be extremely happy. What seems a little weird is that his number two has been now, I guess, anointed by Donald Trump and the American administration to at least sit in the chair and assume, outwardly at least, a level of control But America has made it very clear that they now think that Venezuela's oil, or certainly some of Venezuela's oil, is America's oil. And what a surprise, this seems to be about oil again. But a little more than that. It may also be about silver, because Venezuela does produce, I think it's 12% of the world's silver. The night before the Americans went in and took out the president, 11 aircraft of Russian and Chinese origin departed Venezuela with as much silver, and I suspect probably a bit of gold, as they could carry. That's 11 transport aircraft filled to the gills with tons upon tons upon tons upon tons of silver, all headed respectively back to Beijing or Moscow. But that's okay. The mine in Venezuela that produces all this silver is still producing. And as you've heard Donald Trump say, we now control Venezuela. So rest assured, plenty of silver coming back into the American coffers, I imagine, in the very, very near future. We talked last night about the ICA. I'm a bit disturbed about bringing the ICA up again, because that is the Irish Citizens Army. The Irish Citizens Army certainly appear to have a bit of a militant edge to it. But I'm wondering if that isn't a bad thing. And I'm wondering, is that something that Australians should be now starting to consider? An Australian Citizens Army, an Australian Citizens Information Corps, an Australian Citizens Political Oversight Corps. Wouldn't that be nice? The technology exists through blockchain and your mobile phone for you to be able to vote on things that would affect the nation instantly. That vote would be transparent and fast. I once floated the idea of an app that would be run as a television show. Ostensibly once a week, the nation could choose to sit down, pick up the app, and answer a few questions. And if you chose not to be involved, you'd have to be of voting age. But if you chose not to be involved, then that is your choice. You do not get to bitch and moan about what others decide. Everybody gets a vote. And if you choose not to use it, then that's fine. But you don't get to whinge about the decisions made by others. So that should encourage people to vote, in theory. Vote on the questions. Things like, should we be sending more aid to Zelensky and his cronies, who seem at this stage to be funneling phenomenal amounts of money into little places like Liechtenstein, where one of them has been discovered holding money. Also in Switzerland, where the Swiss bankers have made what I think is potentially a fatal error in their business going forward. The Swiss bankers have agreed to freeze all the bank accounts of Zelensky and other Ukrainian political people who are holding accounts in Switzerland. Now, that sounds like a good thing right from the outset, and it probably is a good thing. But people have bank accounts in Switzerland for a reason, because the Swiss banking laws and the ability of any other country to get access to those bank accounts is very limited. They guard their Swiss bank accounts and their privacy extremely highly, but not anymore, it seems. That's a very dangerous business message, I would have thought, for them to be sending out. quite a strange message for them to be sending out. So on to what is, I think, probably one of the most disturbing things that has happened in this country. And it's a trend, but it's one of the most disturbing things I think I've ever seen. There is a young British war veteran who's being deported from Australia for joining a nationalist activist group. Now, that group was the NSN, or the National Socialist Network. He joined the group. I believe he was seen in a picture standing with others in that group somewhere, and has now been singled out. His house has been raided, and he has been shoved into a West Australian detention centre. He's been told he's going to be deported. For what? For what crime did he commit? He hasn't committed a crime. There is no crime in joining a club. There is no crime in joining a group. You know, you may not like the idea of joining the Hells Angels, but plenty of people did, have done, will do. Do they get locked up because they joined? Well, not anymore, they don't. There was a time. But this bloke, a war veteran, served in Iraq or Afghanistan, I suspect, maybe other places, and is in Australia on a bridging visa so that he can be with his partner while they plan their marriage and their future together, is now going to be deported back to the old dart. I find that a bit incongruous when you can see just, in the last little while, the noticer has very aptly laid out people who've been accused of hacking a man's hand off, just about. People who've been charged with child sex offences. People who've been charged with all sorts of heinous rape, heinous crimes, have all been allowed out on bail. Now, these are immigrants that have been charged, but they've all been allowed out on bail after committing serious criminal offences. Here we have a war veteran who joined a group who basically says, well, look, we want Australia first, right? Australians for Australia. Here's a POM that wants to come and live here, has found an Aussie girl to marry. He wants to bring his life out of the old dart and come to Australia. And let's face it, why wouldn't you? There are 300,000 Indians a year who are deciding to do that. What's wrong with one POM doing it? But I know tonight he's in the Western Australian Detention Centre, and there is every likelihood he is going to be deported. This is absolutely disgusting, and I hope that he will sue the Australian government for their actions. Unfortunately, it might mean he's going to have to do it from the old dart, and he's probably going to need to wait until there is a change of government, and even then it'll probably take some wrangling from the minister before he's allowed back in the country to be with his partner. This is absolutely disgusting. I would be equally upset if they were treating an Australian war veteran this way, but they can't deport Australian war veterans from Australia. I know they'd like to. Instead, this veteran, who I don't know is getting any support from our Australian veteran community at all, but they need to get behind him. I mean, it doesn't matter whether this guy was an operator or his job was to make sure that everybody got Marmite for breakfast. It doesn't matter what his job was. He served in a war zone, the same war zone that many of our veterans have returned home from, the same war zone that many of our former military men and women are now working in other roles, private roles. But this bloke's not doing that. This bloke's living with his partner in Western Australia, trying to make a living for themselves and a future for themselves in what once was the greatest country in the world. But now, by deliberate deed, by deliberate government action and deliberate government inaction, we are being dragged into a second and then to a third world country future. Now, I know that most of you watching this, that's not something that you want. It's the people who can't see it yet we need to convince. We need them to come out. We need them to wake up. We need you to help wake them. Good luck with that. We're still looking for the key. Maybe this one will help. Water. Isn't it a marvellous thing? Well, the Australian data centres require an awful lot of water. When I say an awful lot of water, I mean a shitload of water. These are the data centres located around the country. The size of the dot, the larger or smaller amount of water required. Why do data centres require water, I hear you say? Because that certainly was a question I had in mind. Well, it appears that be the reason why data centres require water. Now, at the moment, depending on the size of the data centre, well, let's just quote some figures here. A medium-sized data centre can consume up to roughly 110 million gallons of water. What's that, 4.2 litres in a gallon? So 110 million gallons of water per year for cooling purposes, equivalent to the annual water usage of approximately 1,000 households. Larger data centres can drink up to 5 million gallons per day, or about 1.8 billion litres annually. Gallons annually. Multiply 1.8 billion by 4.2. That's the equivalent usage of a town of 10 to 50,000 people. Now, I can't believe this. Australia has 5,426 data centers. They consume billions of gallons. No, this is America. Gallons of water annually. One report estimated the US data centers consume 449 million gallons of water per day. So Australian data centers, of which we have, I think, over 100 now, and we're building bigger ones all the time, consume phenomenal amounts of water. Where are they getting it from? Well, they're not putting a big green tank in the backyard. They are plugging into the mains and they are sucking it dry for as much as it's worth. What they're also going to do is put it in regional areas. They'll plug into things like the Murray River and suck it from there. Bugger the farmers who've been fighting the bureaucrats along the Murray now for fair usage water rights along their properties, something they've had for ever. The farming around that, right along the Murray there, is required to have access to the Murray for water forever. But I know, well, that's sort of been changing over the last few years too. Thankfully, maybe not to the extent that many of them wanted. But now, places like Wagga have got data centres in them. Places like Albury have data centres in them. And phenomenal amounts of water is required to keep the computing, the AI computing, well, I was going to say the software, but it's not. It'll be the processors cold or cool enough to work. I cannot imagine where all that steam goes. And why don't they capture it again and reuse it? Wouldn't that be the green thing to be doing? Or does it just somehow vaporize into nothing? I mean, that's possible, I guess. I don't know much about how they do this kind of thing, but I'd like to know why, and we will be paying for this, have no fear. We will be the ones who'll be paying for this water usage. It'll be national security. It'll be something we have to do. So what are they collecting data on? I just saw somebody pop up there, Katrina. Collecting data on absolutely friggin' everything. Everything is wired in. You see all those cameras on your street? Well, you might be lucky enough to live in a town that doesn't have them yet, but they're coming, rest assured. It'll start on the outskirts so they can track who's going in and who's going out. Then they'll work their way in. You've already got them if you've got things like ATMs in your streets. You've already got them if they've put in the new lights, the new LED lights. There's a vast number of those have cameras mounted inside them. There is all sorts of weird shit that comes out of those. And I might see if I can get a hold of Sean Ambrose to have a chat about what he discovered was coming out of the one they put in front of his house. When he brought it up, he had some men in white coats turn up on the door with police to help remove his guns and send him off to hospital for a week's stay. It was an interesting time. But keep an eye out. The cameras are coming, and they may not go into every street in every part of the land, but be guaranteed they will go into all the major intersections. They will go into all the major junctions. They will know where you live and will be tracking you from wherever. And because you are on the move, all the data that they've acquired through your mobile phone will be aligned so that when you turn up at wherever you're turning up and open your phone up, you'll start seeing ads for everything from where to stay the night in the area that you're in, to go and get a feed, or to get your hair cut, or to go and see a show. All of that will be all there, lined up, ready for you to read without you saying anything. That's what data centers are all about, acquiring all that information, being able to put it into a usable format, and allowing those who will pay to access it a way to make your experience that little bit easier. And it's the way that they are going to screw us in this world, folks. Which leads me on to the next little thing that I want to talk about. Elon Musk. What a marvelous, marvelous human being, many of us have said. He does appear to be saying and doing quite a lot of the right things in many instances, but then there is also what he's planning on doing with AI. So I want you just to have a listen to something that happened on the HBO network recently, an interview that he did with a couple of people there, talking about his AI company and what they're working on doing.
You're a neuroscience company, and you're working to build basically an interface to the brain.
Yeah. Electrode to neuron interface at a micro level.
Okay, what is it? Like, I'm gonna have like a plug in my head that's gonna fit into a hard drive? Like, or how does that work?
Yeah. A chip and a bunch of tiny wires.
This would be implanted surgically. And it would do what? Could you input? Could you download Jim?
Yes.
Well, what?
The long-term aspiration for Neuralink would be to achieve a symbiosis with artificial intelligence, and to achieve a sort of democratization of intelligence, such that it is not monopolistically held in a purely digital form by governments and large corporations.
Basically, an effort for man to merge with machine in a healthy way.
Yes.
To beat machines, you basically have to merge with machines.
Most likely, yes. Essentially, how do we ensure that the future constitutes the sum of the will of humanity? And so if we have billions of people with a high bandwidth link to the AI extension of themselves, it would actually make everyone hyper smart.
He makes a very interesting point, that last line. It would make everybody hyper smart. I guess it probably would. How much smarter do people feel when they use AI today? How much easier has AI made many people's lives? You tell it what you want, it creates it for you. You give it a few ideas, a few thought patterns. You want it to do a report or tell a story. You just give it some talking points, and it does a very, very good job. There was another question that he mentioned, or another point that he brought up in there about democratic intelligence and guarding against democratic intelligence being only held by those elites and those in power. And that would mean the systematic dumbing down of the rest of society. This would protect against that. Or it would make you immediately programmable into that state. He's talking about a neural link between your brain and a computer. And that computer and your brain can do amazing things together. Or should I say, that computer can do amazing things to your brain. There's probably a better way of putting it. And is it really happening? Is it something we need to be concerned about? Oh, I don't know. Here's what they're making at the moment at the Neuralink factories. So these are the chips. They're producing them at a reasonably rapid rate. And my guess is they'll be very effective. And sure, there will be phenomenal life-changing benefits to having this sort of technology implanted. But would you choose to have it implanted? Would you? Given that Grok, the latest of Musk's AI iterations, that Grok has been responsible for some rather interesting answers when it's been asked things in the past. And just recently it was asked a very interesting question about J.D. Vance.
So music reviewer Anthony Fantano posted this. The tweet says, "Am I going nuts?" And as you see there, it's a side-by-side picture of J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk. The implication being, well, they do kind of look alike. Then, of course, Grok gets involved. This woman, Canadian Jennifer, said at Grok, "Do these two look related?" And you just will not believe Grok's response. This is what Grok said. "They share striking facial similarities, same eye shape, nose, and overall structure. It's actually J.D. Vance in both. A standard photo and one from his Yale days in drag with a blonde wig. They're not related, they're the same person." Thank you, Grok, for clarifying this important point. Because while the rest of us just think they look like siblings, apparently Elon Musk's Grok thinks Erica Kirk is J.D. Vance in a wig. Which would not be the first time that has happened. Simply incredible work.
There's AI for you. This might be a bit more. This happened in Mexico, reportedly in the last couple of days. There's also another one that... Certainly very impressive. Looks like a portal to me. And there have been more weird goings on in Switzerland around CERN. There is always some weird friggin' shit going on around CERN over the Christmas New Year period. Hoping to learn a little bit more about it. I only found out about it late this afternoon. So hoping to learn more about that in the coming day or two. And I will bring you news of it as soon as it comes my way. I don't think I've got much else for you tonight, folks. It's been one of those sort of days. Can I tell you that news from the hand is that after the long and fruity complaint that I left yesterday at the Image Centre about what happened yesterday, trying to get my x-rays taken on my hand and get an ultrasound done on my hand, I got a phone call from the owner of the imaging place who very kindly invited me to come back today where they fitted me in for everything. So I've had all the pictures taken, and now I've just got to wait until my doctor comes back after 3 weeks on holiday to figure out what to do. No, apparently somebody will have a look at the pictures tomorrow and tell me what's wrong. All I can tell you is that the X39 patches, which if I remove this, I can prove to you that I wear these things. The X39 patches are really working for me. They are taking a huge amount of pain out of that joint, exactly where I've got it stuck. The webbing between those two fingers was quite swollen. And when I say quite swollen, it was, like squash ball size swollen and tight, really, really tight, very painful, very tight. That has all been taken out by the X39 patch. I've done nothing different. I haven't taken Nurofen or any of those sort of things. I put the patch on. The pain went within 10 minutes and the swelling was gone overnight. Can't believe it. And I actually do feel like it is doing a benefit. Whether or not it can repair whatever it is I've done in there to the tendon, that'll be a whole other question. Probably answered by a doctor who says, oh, goodness gracious me, I don't know. But we'll find out more about that tomorrow, won't we? Where I will suffer my way on the road, as you will too, avoiding the dickheads as usual. Have yourself a bloody good night, folks, and see you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!